and they made leaving the EU about immigration. It made it about, we're going to get our British identity back. You know, we can stand alone. We can do this. We cannot. Let's just be very clear. We don't really grow enough in this country in order to be able to stand alone. And when we talk about being great and our national identity, let's be very clear. The reason why we were great is because we did colonization and we were able to have an empire over vast amounts of countries. It's just a fact. And I'm not even going to get into that. But that was the reason why we were great. That's why the reason we could stand alone. That was the reason why we had such a strong identity. And you are getting people to vote on this idea of leaving the EU because you're saying we need to get back. Get back to what? We're not going back to colonization. You're not going to have that again. So what exactly are you getting people to vote on? And now we're going to be left. And the thing is, the politicians know how much we need the EU. They knew it and they did it anyway. And it's the poorest people, as always, who are going to suffer. The people in the north who I don't understand voted for the Conservatives. And I'm like, when the prices goes up on food and drink and gas and electric, who does that hurt the most? Hi, I'm Sophie Hannah.
I'm Luanda Yasmin.
And I'm Anissa. Welcome to episode 19 of Ethnically Speaking. We are three fabulously smart, opinionated, curious, and highly melanated women representing the UK. We're here to discuss anything and everything affecting our communities, from current affairs to pop culture and everything in between. Nothing is off limits, and we always keep it 100. So forget tiptoeing around topics and technically speaking, because today we are ethnically speaking. So Sophie, what is up, girl?
Well, the highly anticipated second wave of the global pandemic has finally arrived, and the UK has introduced a 3-tiered alert system, which was designed to make it simple for people to understand, but it basically means that different parts of the country are under different restrictions, let alone what's going on in the rest of the world. But I wanted to know, how are you guys being affected by the second wave? Because with all the mixed messages and experts and officials all arguing over the right course of action, who and what should we believe? And has anybody gotten it right?
Yeah, for me, it's really tough. I think, luckily, and I say that, understanding with gratitude, because a lot of people have lost their livelihoods or lost a lot of family members, that with things like COVID, especially with the tier 2 restrictions, the biggest way it's impacting me is that I just don't get to see my friends or my family, or I'm missing out on what would have been big moments for a lot of people. Like, one of my friends, she was meant to be getting married, it's one of my other friend's 30th birthday. So these are, our friend was having a baby shower. It's like all these big moments that are happening in my friends' and family's lives, and we can't even stand in the same room. So it's tough in that way. But I once again express the gratitude I have because I haven't, lost a job or lost a family member. Mm-hmm. In regards to what we should believe, it's really, do you know what? It's really difficult. It's really difficult. Do I believe that there has been inconsistencies in a lot of the messaging that we have received from the public? Absolutely. Yeah. But I think it would be reckless for me to say, oh, it's all fake and blah, blah, blah. I'm not of that belief. Personally, for me, I know that I am just keeping my mask on, washing my hands, keeping the distance. Because the way that I look at it in my mind is, if they're wrong, if cases aren't rising and it's not as bad as they say it is, if they're wrong, they're just wrong. But if they're right, it's like it's devastating. Do you know what I mean? So that's what I'm doing. Has anybody got it right? I think initially when we were seeing a lot of the countries that we spoke about in a previous episode, like New Zealand, those kind of places where, we were saying that they were led by women and they were controlling the infection a little better. I think initially, yes, they were doing well. I think this thing it's kind of tough because nobody's ever we've never faced this before. So it's kind of hard to know what you're doing right when you're tackling something brand new. I think there are places that are doing definitely wrong. I will say that. But I think there's people that are putting their best foot forward and trying. Like I was reading about India. They've got the second highest infection rates after the US in the world, over 7 million. However, their death rate, they've been able to maintain and keep it low. So it's like, okay, clearly there's a bit of an outbreak out there, but there is something that they're doing right or concerning their efforts to. So I wouldn't say they're doing great, but I recognise the efforts of India. So that's what I'm saying.
Fair enough.
So Taiwan didn't even have to go into an intense lockdown because they had all those procedures that they implemented from the beginning. And the difference with them and England has been, at the beginning of this, it was very much like staying at home was a suggestion, you should do this, it's probably best for you. But it wasn't implemented in the same way. So if you give people a choice between isolating themselves and going on as normal, what do we think people are going to choose,
Yeah, and I think as well, because we got round to it a bit too late, because by the time we had gone into a lockdown, they said that Boris Johnson had been warned about this potential conditional disease that was coming, and he missed meetings, he wasn't taking it seriously. But I think in terms of the second wave, I think we opened up very quickly, and the way that we opened up wasn't done in a way that made people feel like it was still a major issue, because, when they pretty much opened up the country, they cancelled the daily briefing straight away. All pubs and shops were opened. Everything was open. So people felt like everything was back to normal, and they acted like everything had gone back to normal. And the reason why, it's a very tough line. They had to open up the world again because obviously the economy was so far gone, and you've put people on furlough, and without people working, the government has to fill the gap. And if they don't feel, and the only way that they can get the money back is if people go back to work. So I do understand that they had to find a balance in line, but I don't think that they did. And the way that we opened up, I felt was reckless. And it's funny, a friend of mine actually put on Instagram, how long do you think until we go back into a second wave? And this is when we just opened up. I was like, 2 to 3 months top. And we're back in it again. We're back in it again. So I think it just makes me sad. Like, it's obviously they're still trying to keep the economy open, but it feels like it's at the price of human lives and actually getting a handle on it.
But I think, as I said before, there's just been so much inconsistencies in the messaging. I think from the beginning, I think at every stage, in the beginning it was very like, you can go into lockdown if you want to, and then it was like no one was going into lockdown, so like, okay, everyone go lockdown. Then it was like, oh, okay, everybody can go outside. Then all of a sudden, okay, but you have to wear a mask. Oh, but then you have to be outside, you have to leave by 10 p.m. And then it's like, oh, but you could only be with 6 people. And so it was just like, it was just so inconsistent. And even my frustration now is with this 3-tier system, because I get tier 1, I kind of get tier 3, I don't get tier 2. I think it just makes no sense at all, and I don't think it's manageable, nor are people able to police it, because it's kind of like, oh, you can't have anyone in your household, you can't go into a restaurant with somebody from a different household, but you and up to 6 people from different other households can sit outside. It's just like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. I just think nobody's going to follow that. And I think restaurants, especially small restaurants, I don't want to call anybody out, they want the money. They're not going to be checking all from the same house.
How do are we bringing like proof of address?
Exactly. Anybody can lie.
I just feel local lockdowns can't work in a country like the United Kingdom, or let's say England, because let's be very clear, other places are taking it a bit more seriously. Like Scotland, I've heard that Wales has just announced that they're going to go into like a crackdown. And this is something that people have been asking to happen in the UK, a circuit breaker. So a period of 2 weeks where we would just go into another lockdown to try and get the R number down. But we don't seem to want to do that. I think they're closing the
border as well.
My thing is like, our country is too small for a local lockdown. You can do it in the States because every state basically is a country. So it's much easier to say, California or Florida has been locked down. But when you're saying, oh, Manchester's been locked down. But look, I know people who live in the Midlands and they're just like, oh, Birmingham is shut down, no problem. Let me go to Leicester then to go and do what I need to do. Like, it's too close to be trying to implement it and assuming that things aren't going to spread. Because when you lock down one area, you're forcing people to go out if things are still open, which they are. And my thing is, that Boris Johnson is going to say, it was the people, we did all we can. And I'm like, it's not the people. It's ridiculous that you're saying that we have to wear masks everywhere, but when we go in a restaurant, we don't. People are sharing forks, utensils, like the rate of infection is going to be a lot higher, but we're trying to get money in. It's just madness, honestly.
I've been going to the restaurants since obviously throughout the lockdown, and I even went to one this weekend. I went with my sister. First of all, they really didn't care if anybody had a mask. They didn't offer any kind of antibacterial. They didn't give me a temperature check. And they also gave me a glass which looked like somebody else had just drank from it. There was like lipstick smudging. I had to send it back. I said, oh, no. No, my sister caught it and she was like, no, this is dirty. You need to send it back. At that point, I was like, I feel very unsafe.
You know who's
don't care.
That? Do you guys go to Weatherspoons?
No.
I used to. When
I was especially like in my teen years, like I was living in Weatherspoons, but like they would always like serve glasses with lip marks on them, just like routinely. And every single time, like you'd get cutlery with like food still on it, and I'd just sit there and I'd be like, we are getting what we pay for, and this is why people keep going there, because everything is so cheap. But it's cheap because there's going to be someone else's food on your fork and someone else's lipstick stain on your glass, and like I don't actually drink from glasses anyway. Like I'll always use a straw if I can, except I guess if it's like a wine glass or something. But to be fair, like I drink a spirit through a straw. I don't even care. Like, and I'm talking pre lockdown as well. This is just my hygiene preferences, and I would like clean the forks and knives before I ate with them as well, because I don't know, I just don't trust them. You're going to put it in a big dishwasher, you're not going to check it afterwards. Exactly.
And I think
with COVID, you have to be vigilant.
And I think that kind of personal, because like you guys are talking about forks and stuff, but it makes me think about how personal this is all going to get again with us being in lockdown, and how is it going to affect us personally? Because the first time when the sun was going down late and summer was coming, it wasn't as bad. You could look out your window and see the sun or go for a walk or whatever. But now going into another lockdown and we're going into winter, the clocks are going, back or forward, whatever which way the clocks are going. Exactly. It's happening next week. And like for me, it's like I need to make sure that I'm getting back into a routine if I'm going to be at home, because the days can so easily like drift into one another. And I think with the first lockdown, there was this massive emphasis on being as productive as you could be. Bake as much banana bread as you can, get as fit as you can, start your side hustle. Like you have all this time. But I think now people are much more going to be feeling the mental health weight of it on them, because it's like it's going into it, and we're going into like winter, coming into the holiday season. It's going to be more of a strain, and people need to really make sure, the government needs to make sure that they're giving tips on how people can actually survive and thrive through this, because I think it's going to show up a lot of issues of people not being able to cope.
Yeah. Have you guys heard of SAD?
No. Yeah.
SAD. Basically
it's
seasonal affective disorder. Yeah. And it's like a type of depression that affects you come every winter, because your serotonin levels are just drops, and there's not that much, like vitamin D from the
sun and light.
Like literally what you were just saying, Sophie, if you can look outside and it's still bright, like you feel like you have a good day, a lot's going on. When it gets darker and when it gets colder, it affects a lot of people more. And this is why I feel like Christmas is placed like where it is, because we need something to hang on to. Like when the winter periods come, we're like, okay, Halloween, bonfire night, Christmas, because we need something to cling on to. If we had nothing during these winter times and everything, like I said, is dark and cold, it just sends you into like such a negative spiral. And so that plus a lockdown, I don't know what it's going to look like. So I'm really not looking forward to part 2.
But that's why I'm of the unpopular opinion that I think now the whole country should go into lockdown for at least a couple of weeks, because I'd rather do the trade-off right now versus Christmas, if I'm honest. I want to be able to see my family and my friends and have the Christmas experience. So I don't mind being locked up now for a couple of weeks or whatever, so that I can have the trade-off for Christmas, because I think if something isn't done drastically, I think by the time we get to Christmas, we would have already been in lockdown or haven't experienced lockdown, and there's going to be strict Christmas rules. Because when I've been out, guys, even though the pubs close at 10 p.m, I'm just seeing large crowds of people. They're drunk, they're all over each other. No one's wearing a mask. And I'm just thinking to myself, we're going into a lockdown. Like, every time I see crowds, I think, no, we're going into a lockdown. Because these people don't care. And that's why they say a lot of the cases now are present in the younger population. Because they're out, they're getting drunk, they're mingling, they're tired of
It's true.
I think we need a lockdown. I seriously do.
In terms of thinking that we need a lockdown, what do you guys think about the Swedish model? In terms of the Swedish model is saying that in Sweden, they haven't actually gone into a lockdown. They've actually trusted people to say, like, if you think you need to isolate, then you should. And they're saying that you don't need to wear masks because it gives a full sense of reality. Let me just say it then. I don't think we can trust British people.
Not British
We can't be trusted.
I'm not mad at the no masks things, because I'm not a fan of masks, and when you have to travel for long periods of time, it literally feels so suffocating, and I wear it out of respect for other people, but I would really, really rather not. But we tried the trusting British people thing at the beginning. Like I said, if you give the people the choice between isolation and going to Wetherspoons, you will see me in spoons.
Listen, you cannot trust the British people, period. And that's not even a thought. Absolutely not.
It's true.
Okay, well, I know we've talked about something very serious in regards to the pandemic, but I want to talk about something a little bit more frivolous, especially about a woman who had a socially distanced 40th birthday party, and she spent a whopping £21.5 million for the party, and 20 million of that was spent on her jewel-encrusted dress. Now, she went all out. She had 10 friends who were physically with her at her house, but then she had 20 friends who held mini international parties simultaneously online via Zoom. She also sent out £16,000 hampers of food and drink to different locations. And then, of course, a £3,000 gift bundle to thank the host. Now, this sounds like a hell of a party, and I wish I was there, but it made me think, how much is too much to spend on major life events? And do we unfairly put financial pressure on our friends and on our family in order to celebrate our own life choices?
I'm really not one to tell someone how they should be spending their finances, especially not for a big life event. Like, if you have lived on this earth for 4 decades and you want to spend $21.5 million is Lebanese currency? Dollar?
It worked out to pounds,
I think it's in US dollars.
£21.5 million on like a dress. And she went in for her friends, though. She got her friends' places disinfected before and after the party.
That's the realness right there.
I love that.
The kind of
the
service
goodie
I
bags
need.
had designer items in there. The goodie bags were costing grand. She paid for all the catering, all the alcohol. What I really want to know is how I can get in contact with this woman and be her friend. Because listen, babes, if you're listening, I would love to attend your 50th birthday party.
Honestly,
what do you mean 50th? You mean 41st, Luanda?
No, because I think she's going to go hard for like 40, 50, 60. So like, I'll work my way.
I'm going to take the next birthday. I'll take the next birthday.
I need the next big extravaganza. Like, I need as wild as what they were given. Like let's not even get into the details. But I love that because she paid for everything, and the only thing that her friends had to spend was their time. But in reality, for most of us who aren't millionaires, we have to actually like figure out what we can do with the friends that we have, because you're only as rich as your poorest member, right? Like, if you want to plan something, you have to make sure that everyone can meet the budget, because 9 times out of 10, if you're going on a little trip, everyone's paying their own way. You're like, oh, I'm going to do this for my birthday. But everyone's going to have to, like, I'm not going to pay for your ticket because obviously I can't afford it. But that means that I then need to go to a place that you can afford and that everyone in the friendship group can afford. So I understand how, when you get to that age, I'm not there yet. I don't have any married friends. But when I get to the age of like wedding after wedding after wedding after wedding, it just becomes a bit much because you're going to need to buy like new clothes and then there's going to be baby showers. And so like I can understand why people are feeling the strain and people might feel disrespected if you don't come and celebrate their big life events with them. Because for me, like if you're invited, you're someone that I care about. You're not just going to be like, I'm not just going to be having numbers. Like you are someone important to me. And so it would hurt me if you don't turn up. So I get it on both ways, but we just need to have rich friends, guys. It solves all the problems.
I'm of the one. Oh, do you?
Oh, I was gonna say, I don't know if I'm here for planning something for the cheapest common denominator. I don't know, man. Like, because at the end of the day,
you poor girls can stay at home.
I'm just saying, how many things am I not gonna do because the group can't? Like for real. Because what about if I want to go for a weekend away and like there's a few people that can't, or I want to go on like, I was like, guys, let's go on some like round trip to Bali, like let's plan it, and we're always gonna say no and have to go up to York because some people haven't got their P's in order. I don't know if I'm here for that all the time. Sometimes some people have to miss out on things, and sometimes things will be in the budget. So that's where I'm at in this time in my life, isn't it? If you can come, great. If you can't afford it, we'll do something else another time.
You see, I kind of sit in the happy medium with you guys. For me, spend whatever you want on your birthday. I mean, do I think because the dress itself was just like 20 million.
That's insane.
And I thought to myself, that's crazy.
But a cape. It was a cape dress, and when I get to 40, I'm wearing a cape dress. And you guys will see.
Gosh.
Have you watched Friends from College?
No.
Okay, there's a show on Netflix, and basically this extravagant woman, she has a cape dress, and she's like, every woman should have a cape dress. Since that moment, and she was 40 years old, since that moment, I was like, when I'm 40, I'm having a cape dress. And then that woman wore one, it was 20 million. I'm here for it. That's what I needed to say.
Well, I won't be getting a cape dress, but I'm one for like, I like celebrating, especially my birthday, so I always like to go like big. It's just birthdays mean a lot to me.
Me too.
But I will say, many years ago, maybe my aspirations for my big birthdays really did come to the cost of my friends, because it would be like, oh, I'm doing X, Y, Z, and B. You all need money for this, and you all need to come to every single moment. And, you know, as I got older, I realised it wasn't fair, because obviously everyone has their own kind of, you know, economics going on. And so I usually do more than one thing for my birthday. So I allow people the option to choose, kind of like choose what's to your budget. But what I also do is, if I'm doing, for example, two or three things for my birthday, I'll pay for 2 out of the 3. So if it's like, okay, we're going on a night out, I'm going to buy a table at the club. Everyone gets free entry. I'm going to get drinks as well. So you can come in, you can enjoy yourself. If we're going to brunch, I may buy all your drinks, but you know, you pay for your meal, things like that. So I kind of sit in the medium. But when it comes to like, I'm like Sophie, I do not plan to the person who has the lowest money. Otherwise, my dreams and my vision will not take place. And this is why you have to have different groups of friends. Because you do, honestly, you do what this friendship group can afford. You do what that friendship group can afford. But sometimes when I want to go out and I'm like, okay, it's the end of the month, I want to go out, but I know this person gets paid on the 15th instead of the 24th, so they don't have the money. Let me call the person who gets paid on the 30th, so I know that they may have some more coins. Do you want to go to eat? Okay, yes, we're going. So I kind of choose who has the money and where we're going.
That is jokes. I feel like the average, like it can still work out to a good time, because for me, like I've still been able to do everything that I wanted to do for my birthdays, because like I'm like you, like I love birthdays, like they're important to me. It's like a celebration of life, you know, reflection, all of that stuff. That's why I'm not mad at that lady who turned 40. Like that's a big deal, you know what I mean? But so
naughty 40.
Oh God, is that
naughty 40? Have you not heard of that?
I've heard
you're dirty 30 and you're naughty 40s.
Naughty 40. I feel like I don't want to be naughty at 40. I want to be sensible.
Really? I thought you wanted to be wild forever, Luanda. I thought you were just...
Who am I kidding? No, I always feel like the person I am now, I'm going to be like forever just like different, I don't know, say different versions of the same person, if that makes sense. Just like levels up, like, because I just feel I was gonna say that the difference between like the poorest member of my friendship group and the richest member of my friendship group isn't big. And then I thought, about their income, and it actually is it's a gap. It's a gap, but we've been able to figure everything out, and I feel like the most important thing is that like we're all doing something together, because it doesn't really feel right when we like drop people off.
Separate,
like I'd rather do the thing that you said, Anissa, like just move to a different friendship group instead of having one and four of us are missing. Like,
or you can pay for the person who doesn't have the money. You just pay for them.
I was going to say, when I do things and I've gone to places that have been expensive or things that are expensive, what I'll always do is I'll put money down, but I don't tell anybody. So if we've gone somewhere and we've gone away, I will tell people, oh, it's £100 per person, but it might actually work out to like 150, and I'll just pay the difference, because I don't need my friends to know that I'm paying the extra so that they feel bad or they feel indebted. And if I have the money to pay for it, then I will, and then everyone can come. So that's how I would find a workaround. But I'm saying, as you get older, if you have the privilege of having your income increase as you get older, you're going to realize there's not going to be every time you're going to be able to say, well, it's always going to be a Nando's and chill. When you're like, actually, no, I want to go somewhere a bit nicer. So if you can't afford it, that's cool. But, you know, maybe we can do something else for the get together. And to be fair, I've always found the people that are closest to me are always willing to put up the money.
But that's
the
exactly
same way I would with them.
But that's exactly what the topic is about, though. Like, then everyone feels like all the people closest to you having all these life events, and you want to you just taking it out. It's actually becoming like quite financially costing. Draining.
I guess for me, I just try and make things as cheap as possible. Like when I got married, like weddings themselves are expensive, so people can spend, like, I agree that people should spend what they want to on their events, but I feel like sometimes 20 million for me, I'm just like, it's a bit ludicrous. Like you could have found a dress.
We're not millionaires.
Well, it's true. And do you know what?
A dress that's like £200 for us, and we're like, oh,
do you know what?
A dress that's £200 because
like you're completely right. And the thing is, we don't know if she actually kept the diamonds or if the diamonds were on loan. Like the diamonds could have been on loan, sewn onto the dress, and then taken out afterwards, and then returned to the shop. Because obviously, you're going to be able to rent jewelry, and that's what a lot of people do for big events. So we don't know what her background is, but I think I've lost my train of thought.
I'm so sorry.
When you came in, it just... No, so I was saying for my wedding, like I can understand how things can get expensive, and like you can try and, like I said, try and keep things down. Like, but I got married in Devon, because both myself
by the sea.
Not by the sea, just at this kind of rural kind of manor house type thing. Ooh. It was like owned by like the Queen's cousin or something.
Okay.
Look. So, but it was because like me and my husband both lived in different cities, so we were like, people are gonna travel wherever. Because all of my people are going to come from the south, his are going to come from the north. So why don't we just find somewhere that we really want to get married, and then everybody can just travel to there. But when you do things like that, you have to understand that some people are not going to commit. Some people aren't going to come. And you just have to be okay with that. But I don't like when people spend big money on events and it's only for the gram. Like they have this big wedding so they can front on the gram. Or I read in this article.
I don't mind if I get invited.
Well, this is the thing. P. Diddy spent like 30 million, and Al Green did a personal serenade. I'm there all day. 100%.
You see what I mean?
Like, to enjoy it.
I can and can.
But I think for me, it's for people who will do these things. Like I was reading the Jewish Journal, and it's talking about bar mitzvahs, and they were like, they're getting Academy Award documentary makers to do a video of their child's birthday and then of their bar mitzvah, and then they're getting celebrities to come like Nicki Minaj or DJ Khaled, and they're saying it's to the point where this guy was saying he was there to chaperone the kids, and he was like, the kids weren't even dancing, they were just trying to take pictures with DJ Khaled, and then all the chaperones were dancing because for the parents it's about trying to show who has the best bar mitzvah. Like you want to show that you have the most money and prestige, and when it becomes to things like that, the event itself just loses any meaning. So it has to keep the meaning of it, and money isn't going to make an event good. I've been to weddings where they put big money in and they were dead.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think money isn't a solver of everything. I think, of course, it can facilitate some very nice aesthetics and etc. However, if the crowd and the people that you love and all those kind of people who are genuinely there to celebrate you are not there, or you just have all these random extra people, I think it just kind of dilutes the whole celebration. That's why I always like to just keep it with people that I know like love me at my core versus just like, girl, I'm having this, I'm having that for numbers. Like,
for sure, this is
really my style.
This is literally what I was saying about like, you're not going to just be here to like fill the room. If you don't mean something to me, then I'm not gonna text you, you know.
I did something.
I'm not into these extra people at the wedding. Sometimes you'll be at people's wedding and they're like, I don't know so and so. I'm thinking, so why is this person at your wedding?
Because mummy or daddy said that they need to come. That's why.
My parents could never.
So that brings us to the halfway point of the episode. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. So far in this episode, we have talked about the new tier system and how it's affecting us. Plus, we talked about how much is too much to splurge on major life events. Now on to major national events. 4 years ago, the public decided that it's a good idea to leave the European Union. The process has been long and messy, and now Boris Johnson is telling us that we should prepare for a no-deal Brexit. So I wanted to ask you, how do you think this is going to impact us? And do you think we're going to be able to survive it, especially with our other regulations happening as well?
I think it's first of all important to talk about what it means to be leaving with no deal, because I think there's so much political jargon going on. We know that we're leaving the European Union, we hear no deal, and it's like, what does that mean? And it's basically that the UK trades heavily with the EU. So it's something like we export 43% of our produce or resources or whatever to the European Union, and we import 51% of our goods and resources from them. And we've been able to import and export for free because we're part of the Union. And we've also not had to check anything on the borders because it's coming from the EU and we're in this treaty together. When we break out of the European Union, if we leave with no deal, it means that we haven't agreed any terms in regards to tax and tariffs, in terms of exporting and importing into the European Union, meaning that we're going to have to trade according to the World Trade Organization, which means that it could be how much tax on top of things. So it means that things are going to be backed up on the borders, things that could travel into the country before and now having to get checked, and it could have a backlog. My point is, this is going to affect us, especially in the short term. With the pandemic going on, we have not had the time as a country to focus on getting a deal sorted and making sure that there was a smooth transition. We were supposed to have this whole year for a transition, and it hasn't happened. And apparently Boris Johnson is telling people pharmacists and pharmaceutical companies to stock up on medication for 6 weeks in preparation. Sainsbury's, Tesco's, all the supermarkets are trying to stock up on food, but they're just like, there are some things that we're just not going to get, and people need to be prepared. 30% of our produce, fruit and veg, comes from Europe. It's not going to be coming in. They're saying there's not going to be as much choice, and we're going to have to put the prices up on things in order to account for the fact if tax goes up on these goods. It honestly, it makes me so sad.
It's just honestly, it's just horrible. Like, I just hate it all. One, I don't think it should have taken us this long to get to a point of still negotiating a deal, but we don't have any kind of deal on the table, and now we're about to. Like, it's just far-fetched to even say that this was decided 4 years ago, and 4 years later, this is the position that we're in. That we're scrambling for a couple months, and we don't have anything. We don't even have a little bit of something. We don't even have a draft. We just have nothing. Do you know how ridiculous that sounds? Like, do you know how much of a joke this country feels like we're running with a joke? Like, people can't even lead us. No, that's how much it infuriates me. It's an actual joke. Like, it's crazy to me. Like, it's just crazy, because the reality of the situation is it's going to impact us, the people that are like on the ground, more. And we are now also fighting a pandemic, and they're saying that the recession that's about to come is going to be 4 times worse than the recession that was in 2008, 2009. So on top of people not having money or not having jobs, again, then we're going to have less produce. Things are going to go up in price, but the cost of the living wage is not going to go up, but people are not going to have any money. You're not doing the furlough scheme anymore. You're only offering this job support scheme. It's only 22% of people's wage. Like, it just is ridiculous. And at the end of the day, us as a nation, as a population, we're going to end up paying for it. And I just think it's going to be scenes of chaos. I hope it is not, but I think it will be scenes of chaos.
Definitely.
Go off, Anissa. Go off.
I'm very
It's
upset.
true.
It's just
It's true.
I
silly.
enjoyed it so much.
Yeah, it takes 4 years. Honestly,
It's true. No, you're right. And there's been so many other layers to it, but I'll get into that in a second, because as soon as you said that, I thought of so many things. But one of the things that scares me is, so during the UK being in the European Union, if you are a medical professional working in the UK, but your nationality is from the EU and not from England, we have this deal that your medical qualifications are able to be recognised. And with the withdrawal agreement, they were urging that all the qualifications that were recognised before December 2020 should be recognised afterwards. With a no deal, that might affect workers' rights to enforce that the qualifications should be recognised. And for context, I think there is like 67,000 NHS workers that have a nationality within the EU. So that's how many NHS workers that could affect. And if you're someone that works here and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, sorry, and I see that you were a doctor in December, but it's now January. So, do you know what I mean? So that might actually encourage a lot of people to relocate, and I wouldn't even be mad at them if they did. And of course, with the current pandemic, we can't have anything else except for consistent healthcare. Like, we just had a whole discussion about how we haven't handled this well, and how too many of us are dying, and how we're all scared to go on to the next chapter because winter's coming and there's so many other things going on. We can't also then lose 67,000 medical professionals in this process. Like, it's
and the NHS is
petrifying.
so stretched already.
Yeah.
Listen.
And I think this is what makes me so upset about all of this, honestly, is that the reason why this was even brought about 4 years ago is because politicians capitalized on xenophobia, and they made leaving the EU about immigration. It made it about, we're going to get our British identity back. You know, we can stand alone. We can do this. We cannot. Let's just be very clear. We don't really grow enough in this country in order to be able to stand alone. And when we talk about being great and our national identity, let's be very clear. The reason why we were great is because we did colonization and we were able to have an empire over vast amounts of countries. It's just a fact. And I'm not even going to get into that. But that was the reason why we were great. That's why the reason we could stand alone. That was the reason why we had such a strong identity. And you are getting people to vote on this idea of leaving the EU because you're saying we need to get back. Get back to what? We're not going back to colonization. You're not going to have that again. So what exactly are you getting people to vote on? And now we're going to be left. And the thing is, the politicians know how much we need the EU. They knew it and they did it anyway. And it's the poorest people, as always, who are going to suffer. The people in the north, who I don't understand, voted for the Conservatives. And I'm like, when the prices goes up on food and drink and gas and electric, who does that hurt the most? And the politicians won't care then. Honestly, it just makes me so angry that this was really founded on an idea of racism. And it really shows the ideologies that really underpinned our government, and they stoked fear in people that they were going to get their country back. But now what they have to do is write deals with other countries because they're like, well, we don't grow enough here. We don't do enough to be able to stand alone. So we need to do a deal somewhere else, but we don't want to do it with the EU.
You see, I think there's so many thoughts that I picked up from Sophie. I really felt Sophie in my spirit just coming up.
You better Anissa and then Sophie. I was like, I almost started doing gun fingers to the camera, but I had to hold myself back. I was like, you guys better go off.
You were like, go where? I was like, let's go. Where are we going? But it was more because you were right about the it being built on xenophobia and racism, but I just kind of find it like funny when Britain like decides to pick and choose what the British identity really means.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you guys have seen that they're bringing out the new coin the 50p coin, and it says that Britain's built on diversity. Oh, you guys haven't seen this? They're bringing out a new 50p coin.
That's just
and
upsetting.
The message on the coin is going to say that Britain's built on diversity, and Twitter was going off because they were like, no, it wasn't. It was built on slavery,
Diversity
colonization,
of the countries that you colonized.
But it was just like. I think this happened I think they announced it like 2 or 3 days ago, so it's still pretty fresh. But the whole point is, it's so funny now that Britain is built on diversity. Okay, but this is the same thing that you weaponize to scare more people into doing a thing.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, when I knew this Brexit thing, I can't remember his name now because I don't know why, but 4 years
Nigel Farage.
No, I'm talking about, who was the Prime Minister?
David Cameron? Yeah, David Cameron.
Okay.
Listen, after that vote came, and the next day, when my boy left, I said, no, I'm done. You man, sort out yourself. I went, no, we're done.
No, okay, just to be clear, he didn't walk away. The party were like, you need to leave, because they're like, you have screwed the country. You need to resign. Like, it wasn't a choice. But it was like, you screwed us.
Like
you need to go. No, it wasn't at all.
He said, if we vote to leave the EU, I'm resigning. That's what he said.
He had to. It was party pressure. It was party pressure.
He was making it seem like, he was like, you know what, I'm done, you lot. And that's
what he was trying to be like, I deeply oppose this decision and I'm off.
Yeah, that's what I got.
You know what? Let me not admit something. I was about to admit something. Let me not.
Move ahead.
Let's move ahead, because you guys are going to look at me like this girl's an idiot. But something that I would. So the reason why I just went like Nigel Farage with my whole chest is because the campaigns that they use, as well as like it was partly the xenophobia, of course, but then also they said, look how much money we spend on the EU each year. And Anissa, you just said the NHS is stretched as it is, right? And they were like,
absolutely
we can
stretched.
use this money
Boris
to save
Johnson
the
said
NHS.
that. Boris Johnson said that. He was like, we put 400 million in.
Politicians said that, including Nigel Farage, who had a whole campaign bus with, like you said, the money on the side of it, saying we can put this into the NHS. Why don't we just leave the EU so we have all this extra spending money? And then went on national television to say, I never promised that. I could never promise that, and I never did. And then they played the clip. The
thing that upsets me about that is that we have a British press that can allow. Politics has gotten to a point where people can spin any sort of lie. They can mix truth with error. So they can say, we spend 400 million, that money could be going elsewhere, which is true. Saying it could go into the NHS, you know that's a lie. You know it's not a savings account. That's not what the EU is. You don't take it from there and put it into somewhere else. Because the thing is, when we first were looking to leave the EU, when what's her name? Theresa May had to start writing deals. The first thing she did was go over to India, go over to this country to do a new deal. And everybody wants the same thing. When you go over there, they said, we want better immigration, so we want to get into the country easier. So this whole idea of we don't want Eastern Europeans, but I'm just like, but when the Indians come, and we've just done a deal with Japan and the Japanese come, are you going to be any happier? Are you going to be happier?
And I'd like to point out, they really don't care about the NHS, because in all this time, have they given our junior doctors or our nurses a pay rise?
Yeah.
No, but
that's a good point.
the politicians have got a pay rise.
But they got a clap though, Anissa, they got a clap. So that's a currency. That's a currency. They received that.
It's just upsetting because they don't care about the NHS, because they all use private healthcare. Let's keep it real. They're not.
So true.
They're not. They use private healthcare. And yes, Boris Johnson went to the NHS when he got sick. That was obviously a publicity stunt, because in terms of not him having the having the condition, but him going to the NHS because
public health service.
Exactly. You were going to. You're not going to Borough of Newham, which has some of the highest rates of the pandemic. You're not doing that. You're going to some prestigious one in Westminster that has the best of the NHS has to offer, and he couldn't, in all good faith, go and use private healthcare, and then the country is now having to use the NHS. And when he comes up with this whole thing, I don't know if you guys have heard about him saying, we're going to have the deal that Australia has. Australia has a deal like the World Trade with the World Trade Organization with the EU, and they're fine. And Australia doesn't rely on the EU. They're so far away. They will pay the tariff and taxes because they're like, well, we don't depend on them for our imports or exports. It's the same with Canada. 100%. We don't depend, but we depend on the EU. So us having to pay higher rates, and there's going to be a backlog now because they're saying we don't even have the space. They're saying we don't have the space to store things at the border. Because before, we never had to store anything from the EU. It was from the EU. It went through straight away. But now they're saying they have to build storage units because they're like, in order to check things, it's going to take up X amount of time. And they're saying any deal that we even broker now is not actually going to help in the immediate future. Because they went, these deals take years to write. So it's not going to be a quick fix. And they said a document got leaked from the government showing that there's going to be, was it a 2 to 8% economic problems, not downturn, but there's going to be a 2% lack of economic growth in the next 15 years after leaving the EU. So they're like, we know that it's not actually going to benefit us. We know that. But they don't want to tell people that.
In terms of trading, the thing is, like, the pro-leavers were all saying, you know, oh, it's going to help British businesses so much, and it's going to grow the economy. And what you just said about the EU, like the EU is like the single biggest trader that the UK has. And like you said earlier about the tariffs, like we don't have any when we're in the European Union, but when we leave the European Union, if we were to leave with a no deal, we have to automatically fall into WTO like trading rules and regulations. So if you wanted to be like, okay, so it's convenient to us to have the EU, like you said, it's next door to us, so it's not going to affect Canada and Australia the same way because they're not relying on us. If we need like an emergency supply of medical equipment, we're going to go to European countries because they're next door. If you wanted to like lower the tariff or something on the European Union countries, you actually couldn't do that without treating all the other countries in the world the exact same.
Exactly.
So like if you did that, if you lowered it to make things easier for everyone else, you would have to lower it for every single other country that wants to trade. So then if we have loads of cheap imports coming into the UK, then it actually does worse for British businesses.
Exactly.
So I'm like, how have none of the things that all the pro-leavers were raving for worked out? Like not a single one? Not a single one. Because even if you were proposing us to leave the European Union and you had good intentions, because I do believe that the campaign ran largely on xenophobia and on giving money to the NHS, but I do believe there are actually leavers who aren't trying to be like trying to do like a make England
Some
great
people
again.
say they don't like the courts of the EU and that we have to abide by their legal laws as well just by being part of it. So you are right.
That's petrifying. That's petrifying to me because I don't need. I mean, it's a whole other topic. Let's not get into it. But that was one of the things that made me vote Remain. Actually,
I think it's so important what you're saying, and I think that the thing that makes me really upset about this is that they're saying that Boris Johnson hadn't even made up his mind about whether he was going to vote Leave or Remain until like a few days before the vote actually happened, because he was trying to work out which one would suit him best, which side that he would take. And when it goes belly up, mark my words, he's going to say, we're just giving the people what they voted for.
Right, but I'm just interested to know, like, how, okay, you know when you do something and it's scary and you calm yourself in your mind by being like, all right, worst case scenario, A, B, and C, right? So when you're campaigning so hard for... Brexit, how are you not also thinking about worst case scenario, which is leaving with no deal?
Do you know what? I can answer that one very quickly. No one saw this pandemic coming. And I would bet money that if the pandemic had happened and we were in the first wave in the middle of it before we left the EU, we would have been like, we're just going to put that on hold for the moment because we need to deal with the pandemic. Because they would have realized now that this has happened, we realize that we can't do without their medication. We can't do without the trade. Now is not the time. But unfortunately, January 31st, we put into leave and we have to deal with the consequences now because we never thought that the country was going to go, as Nanisa said, into a 4 times worse recession than it ever has been before. So you get what you pay for? We did the vote. We have to do the time as a country.
Yeah, I mean,
honey, I didn't vote for that time.
Well, neither did I, but it's democracy. It's democracy.
Now they got me on cell block D trading noodles, so that's not what I wanted, honey.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many layers. But speaking of messy situations, a bus driver texted a customer from finding her number on the track and trace sheet.
Messy.
He has indeed. He has since been fired. And in a addition to that, there is a firm where if you work there, the policy is that you need to let your superiors know if you're dating one of your colleagues. What they're saying now is that you also need to let us know if you're dating someone from the sister firms. So what I wanted to ask you guys is, since it's so hard to find love anyway, is it okay to find love at work? Like, does it really matter if someone is a customer or a server? And do you think your employers have a right to know about your relationships within the company?
I think this is one of those situations where it's an each to their own. Like, find love where you can, girl or boy. Do as you need to. Now,
binary.
Personally,
Anybody, any
myself,
person.
Any person and body, honey. Personally, for myself, it's a no, and I'll put a bold and underline. Like, there's not even wiggle room for me on that. It's just a no.
Today,
no, honey, not an asterisk. It's a bold and underline, maybe an exclamation point. But no. It's a strong no for me, and that's just my personal preference. I think with work, it just is. I'm just so in such a professional zone in work that those barriers aren't even down for me to even get a little flirty. Like, that's not really no.
Yeah.
I think about employers' rights. It's tough. I mean, I guess if you guys are just messing around, not really. But if this is a serious relationship, actually, even messing around. I'm on the thing, like, your work shouldn't really be in your personal business. However, a lot of personal business can affect your work, and especially if maybe one person has a more superior position and maybe can give advantages to that person and things like that. I think it's just fair to kind of disclose that information, and then your company knows it. I mean, like, in a lot of the companies, a lot of my old companies, like, everyone was together. Do you know what I mean? Like, everyone. But you had to sign, I don't know what you call it, but you know, if you used to watch The Office, they used to call it a love contract. You would sign the love contract to say that you two are together and in a relationship and agree
And
to
it's
work fairly.
consensual.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's, I think it's an employer's right, you know, because anything that's going to affect your work, your employer needs to know. If your relationship doesn't affect it, that's perfectly fine. But unfortunately, how relationships are so up and down, it's inevitable that it will affect your work in some capacity.
Yeah, like, I met my husband at work.
Oh, do tell.
No way.
Well, he worked for like a sister organization. So
You better
this
tell
whole
your boss.
this whole thing.
Sneak in and have a conversation.
Do you know what? Like, it was like in a different part of the country. So his one is like in a different part of the United Kingdom. So it wasn't that close. But I'm with you, Anissa. I would say no in general. Like, because we didn't work within the same. Because we didn't work. Because it was a sister organization, but we didn't actually work. The companies didn't work together that much. We hardly had to see each other. Like, none of our works overlapped. If I went to a conference event for the entire body of conferences in the United Kingdom, then I would see him. But other than that, it's not really happening. So if we'd have broken up and things hadn't have worked out, never going to affect my work. I might have had to see him at a conference maybe 3 times a year and have been like, hi, kept it moving. Working like in the same office, it's just messy. I can't bring that mess into my workplace. And then for people to think that I didn't get my promotion because of my hard work.
You did get
but
it
because
yeah.
Exactly.
It's been a little flirty flirt.
Exactly. Like, I was working in another area very well, which enabled me to move up the career ladder. No, I don't. Exactly. I don't want any of those misconceptions going
PG girl.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm interested to hear what Luanda has to say. Go on, Luanda, tell us.
Wherever you can find it, Luanda. Wherever you can find love.
Is
that what you're gonna say? Because I feel like that's where we're going.
Is it a safe space? Though?
It is very. This is the sister circle, honey. This is the
Luanda's real reluctant right now.
I just feel that.
Luanda, have you found love in the same office, Luanda? Have you found relationship in the same office?
Now, love's a strong word, so.
Have you found a hookup? Have you found a hookup in the same office, Luanda?
Oh, many. Many. No, because I have, wait a second. Wait, because
That's why it's contested for you. That's why you're like, oh, I don't know.
But I have a lot of jobs where I'm working around a lot of young, beautiful people.
Okay.
So like, it's going to happen. Here's the thing though, here's the thing. So there was a relationship psychologist and she said proximity and familiarity aids sexual attraction. So I don't
100%.
think it makes that much sense to ban it completely. I think that sometimes, actually I was reading, and sometimes it can actually work towards like, decreasing harassment, because Facebook and Google have this policy where if you ask a colleague out once and they say no, or if they give you an ambiguous answer, you can't ask them out again. And I think that is
that's a good policy.
That is solid.
I think it's fantastic.
That is solid.
But in terms of a ban altogether, I don't think so. I don't think I agree with it. In fact, no, I definitely don't. And I think, especially reading that the CEO of McDonald's got fired because he's in a consensual relationship with an adult. Like, I hate to read that. I hate to read that you've lost, like, in terms of all the people that actually do harass others at work that never get found out, and there's so much like sexism going on, and there actually is, other problematic relationships, but you are just in a relationship with another consenting adult that works for the company that you happen to be the CEO of, and then you lost your job because of it. I don't think that's right. In terms of, like, I don't actually want to have a relationship with someone that I work with, because I just think you don't really know someone until you know their bad side. And you don't see that until you see hurt feelings. So you can think that this person is great and this person's really nice because you're in the like honeymoon phase and everything's going well and you're having great conversations. And then something happens and you see this switch, and it can really make for like a toxic work environment. And so that's why, like, I wouldn't go into work like, who should I date today? But I don't think that people should lose their jobs if they happen to fall into a relationship with someone that they met through work.
Okay, can I come in on that one, Luanda? Because can I come on that? So when I say that I don't think people should date people from work, I'm talking for myself. Like, I agree with what you're saying. We spend the greater majority of our life working. So when you're working with somebody, and let's say you work in the creative field, Luanda, you do modeling, you do acting. So working with other people who are models or actors, there's going to be a natural akin to kind of find in love there. So I think, or find in love, romance, one night stands, whatever. So for me, that's not the issue. I agree with what you say in terms of Facebook and Google. We need better policies, because at the moment, when you're saying that you're going to fire someone, all you're going to do is make people move it underground, and then you're making yourselves more liable for these court cases. In terms of the guy from McDonald's, I think he was in the wrong. If you were the head of the organization, you can't date women who are subordinate, and the same way the other way around, because then the power dynamics are completely off. I think it's so difficult. I'm not here for people dating people within their own line manager line, whether that's above or below, man or woman, because the dynamics are too difficult. If this person has to give you an appraisal and they can give you a promotion, or they have any say so over your work, and then things end really, really badly, then for me, it's those sort of relationships I don't think work. But if it's like peer to peer, then I'm just like, we need to create environments and HR policies that support it in a good way.
I definitely understand what you're saying with the power dynamics. Like, that is definitely real. And in terms of dating your line managers as well. But I just think that we should allow it to be a personal choice, and not like, if you work for this company, you will lose your job if this happens. Because sometimes healthy relationships come from meeting someone. They could be your manager, or you could be their supervisor, and it just happens. But I understand, because I've seen this so many times in like jobs that I've worked at, because I've worked with like a lot of young people and a lot of like beautiful people. So like people just be getting together all the time. And sometimes I see people do it out of choice. So like I saw...
As opposed to what?
As opposed to genuine interest. So the thing that I said about... what did I say? Familiarity and
Okay.
proximity.
Okay.
Makes people more attractive. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm on your thought train now.
I had a friend who dated one of our managers, and I knew that she wouldn't have dated him
if she wasn't.
If he wasn't in a position of power.
Yes. And she literally said
Fair.
that. She literally said, I'm attracted to power. I don't care what you look like. I'm attracted to power. And so she dated one of the managers. And it wasn't because like she was interested in or whatever, because I know if he approached her at a bar and they were just on the same level, she probably wouldn't have given him the time of day. And so I see people doing it as tactics. And so I definitely understand where you're coming from. But again, I just think it needs to be like the company kind of like deals with it in a sensible manner instead of just being like, no, you can't. If you do it, you're fired. I really don't like that.
Same. I agree with you on that. I just think it's unrealistic for any company to think that no one in the company is having some sort of relationship. As you guys have said, just have a fair policy. I think people need to do their part and make sure they disclose it as well. Because the secrecy is what happens. And I agree with both of you. But I just still sit on hard and line with Sophie. Like, personally, for me, and maybe it's because I'm thinking more of an office setting versus a creative setting. The office, because with creative, I guess if you have a shoot or something that only lasts for X amount of time, it's not like you're
3 months or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're not with them. But when it's the office, honey, and it's every day, 9 to 5,
Monday to Friday,
it gets so messy. It's just like And why would you want to spend every moment with someone at home, at work? Oh God, it sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah. No, I feel that.
And I think this whole thing in terms of the subordinate has really come in since the Me Too movement and Harvey Weinstein, because he was someone who was in a position of power and basically coerced a lot of people into doing things with him because of the power that he held. And I think that's why there's so much more of a crackdown on the line manager. Because they're kind of like, if my manager puts it on me and I know that he has control, and if he doesn't get it, he's going to act badly. Let's be honest, I am more likely to go on the date and be like, let me try and let him down easy and this and that. And then that's sexual harassment where we've entered that realm now. So tread carefully, speak to HR. Tread carefully, speak to HR. That's
I was going to say this this reminds me of a very, very many years ago. You know, I had a line manager that had a particular liking to myself. So he really enjoyed taking me to breakfast. Now, I also really enjoyed being taken to breakfast. Yes, I really enjoyed eating the breakfast.
Fair enough.
Okay? I really enjoyed eating the breakfast. But then what I would notice is, so after the, we'd go to breakfast every day, basically. This is like when I was younger and I was do shift work. So we'd go to breakfast all of my shifts, every shift. I'm thinking, okay, I'm getting fed, blah, blah, blah. And then I thought, we're kikiing, we're friends. But then it would just get stranger and stranger. Like when we were working, he felt like he could just stand closer and closer to me and be like, oh yeah, I'll call you, I'll text you back. It just started to cross lines that I felt like it didn't need to cross. I was myself, bro, you just offered me free breakfast. Now it feels like free breakfast with strings. It feels very awkward. So I had to start to distance myself from him because it was like, this just feels really weird. And luckily he wasn't, outside of that general creepy behavior, he wasn't a forceful person. But there's a lot of people who maybe have been like, Raj, she's distancing herself from me, this is what I'm gonna do, and I'll use the power to leverage.
A lot of men don't take rejection well. That's how I feel. I don't think a lot of men take rejection well, and if they have power over my career, that's why I'm just not even stepping. I'm not even stepping there.
Yeah, and it happens so much. Like even like outside of the office settings, even in the creative field. Like I was telling my friends a story the other day about someone who made me really uncomfortable, and I didn't know how to react in that situation because I knew that he affected. I don't want to be specific.
A job. He affected a job. Yeah, he affected some work.
He affected some things. And so it's like it's not like how last week I was like, I'm gonna be firm, I'm gonna tell them I don't like you. I can't come with that, like you can't come with that energy.
Exactly.
It's true. So I do agree, like I said earlier, like there needs to be things in place to cut down on harassment. And that's why I said that I like the ask them once and you're done. Like that's not the only thing that needs to be in place, but I like that there needs to be things in place to step back from harassment. But say that I was interested, I don't have the human right to choose to then pursue that. That's why I'm like, I'm not mad at companies who want to keep tabs on it, but I don't really think people should be fired if there's no actual misconduct's going on.
Fair
Yes.
enough.
I like that we all have all different opinions that will match. So thank you so much for watching another episode of Ethnically Speaking. If you've loved every minute of it, like we have, make sure you give us a thumbs up. Let's keep the conversation going. Have you ever dated someone at work? Will you ever date someone at work? Let us know in the comments below. And if you'd like to see even more of us, make sure you don't forget to subscribe to our email list, where you can get access to Extra Ethnic, which is a special segment for our most ride or die fans. The link for that is in the description below. And also, for a summary of everything we've spoken about today, head over to our website, unitedmelaningroup.com/ES019. The link for that is also in the description below. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell so you do not miss a thing. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you the same time, same place next week. Stay safe and stay alert.